been thinking a lot about confidence lately and self confidence in particular. And basically, that feeling that no matter what happens or what the situation is, you've got it, you're fine, you'll be able to handle it. And I've talked a lot about self trust in the past, in videos, in workshops, in posts. And if you're wondering how self trust and confidence interact, self trust is basically a building block for confidence. So, self trust is having your own back, it is believing that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And you can't have confidence without self trust. Confidence is taking it one step further and really just knowing that you can rely on yourself in any situation. So, there's so many situations that we encounter on a daily basis that would be so much better if we were feeling a little more confident. For example, that meeting that you were running where you stayed up way later the night before than you really wanted to because you were researching all of the answers to questions that people might ask you because you didn't feel confident in yourself in having the answers, or you didn't feel confident that it would be okay to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out for you. So, with more confidence, you will be able to get more rest because you'll no longer stay up all night researching the answers to potential questions when you're in charge of a meeting. Another example of how your life will change when you're feeling more confident is you won't try to people please so much. So you won't be as reactive to what everybody else needs from you. And I hope you're enjoying my kittens. You'll probably see all three of them at some point throughout this video. But if you have ever noticed yourself agreeing with someone when you didn't actually agree just to keep the peace, or you have noticed yourself not speaking up when you had an idea because you didn't think your idea was good enough, that's a sign of low confidence. And it's fascinating to me because if you're in Gen X like I am, that was like the free to be you and me generation, right? Either you had parents who had you listen to that album, or you didn't. I didn't know that album was a thing until my in laws showed it to my daughter several years ago. But our generation was all about like self esteem, right? And the child's self esteem. And at the same time, our parents, their parenting style was one of benign neglect for most of us. So we were kind of expected to fend for ourselves. Anyway, so we were never really taught how to be confident. And women in particular were taught to look to everybody else for the answers. So we are taught to look outside of ourselves for the answers. We are taught to make sure everybody else around us is okay before we're taught to check in to see if we're okay. For example, when our caregivers asked us, well, how do you think when you did that, that made the other person feel? Which empathy is a great thing, right? Except for when it comes to at a cost to yourself. So when you're not even sure how you feel in a situation, but you're worried about how everyone else feels, that can really erode your confidence. So it can be hard for us to feel confident throughout our lives when we're taught that we're not good enough. We're taught that we have to hustle for our worth. We're taught that our value lies in what we give to other people and what we do for other people. So in this video, I want to teach you 3 keys that are actually brain-based to help you feel more confident. So women are raised with all of these ideas about who we are in the world and what we can and what we can't do. And some of these ideas, the socialization is very direct, right? Like if you've ever heard the message, girls aren't good at math growing up. Um, some of them are more indirect, like magazine headlines that are like, wear the right jeans to attract a man, or lose 10 pounds by Friday. that are always communicating to us that we're not good enough as we are. And so then we tend to think that the key to feeling good enough, the key to feeling confidence is achieving more. So we think, if only I could get that promotion, or if only I could get that next degree, or if only I had a partner or had a family, then I would finally get to feel good about myself. Like I would reach that point, I checked all the boxes, I finally get to feel good about myself. And by the time that we get to 40, 50, 60, we're looking around and we're like, huh, that's interesting. I thought by now I'd feel more confident. I thought by now I'd feel more successful. And that's usually where we go on to think, I guess I'll achieve some more stuff. But what I want you to know is that feeling confident has nothing to do with your achievements. And I know you know this on some level because you have likely already achieved a lot, even though you don't feel like you've achieved enough. And you think the secret is another achievement. But with all that you've already achieved, you still don't feel good about yourself. That just tells us that confidence doesn't have anything to do with achievements. Okay, I want to look at my notes to make sure that I am not missing anything. By the way, if you are on this workshop live, drop me a note, drop me a comment, and ask a question about confidence. Let me know what, like, how your life would be if you had a little bit more confidence, what's challenging about building confidence, anything that's on your mind on the topic of confidence. Okay, so over the next like 20 to 30 minutes or so, we're going to go over what it looks like to have a lack of confidence. So, what are the signs of a lack of confidence? And the benefits of having more confidence, what confidence actually is, and my three brain based tools of how to achieve it. And then finally, suggestions for learning more about confidence and actually, I don't want to say actually because you'll learn tools in this Facebook Live to build confidence, but further steps to build more confidence. Okay, so here's some signs of a lack of confidence. So, negative self talk. You know, the voice of your inner critic, the voice of the inner gremlin that's always telling you that you're not good enough, you're not working hard enough, people don't actually approve of you, all of those variations, right? Like, I just need to work harder. I just need to read over this email the 42nd time. I just need to have three friends look at this email to make sure it has the right tone. That's all being driven by negative self talk. So, that self criticism, that critical voice, it's definitely eroding your confidence and it's a sign of a lack of confidence. However, we all have it. So the key isn't to get rid of that voice because you can't get rid of that voice. It will always be there. There's a reason for that. But you can learn to work with it and let it be a curmudgeonly roommate in your head, but not let it drive the bus. If you have a lack of confidence, you might avoid challenges. You would avoid taking on new challenges or trying new things because you fear that you won't be good at them. You fear failure. Raise your hand if you have ever feared failure. That's pretty prevalent in all of us. Excessive perfectionism. Now, it's so fascinating to me because when I ask the people that I work with if they identify as being a perfectionist, they're usually like, no, here's this really messy area of my life. And I was this way too. But perfectionism doesn't mean that everything is perfect in your life. Perfectionism just means that you constantly are identifying the gaps between where you are and where you want to be. And not in a healthy way, right? Like you're walking around your home looking at all of the ways that it's imperfect and all of the things that you should do to make it perfect. You're looking at your work and you're seeing all of the ways that it's not perfect and then beating yourself up for it not being perfect and striving to make it perfect, because we tend to think that once we achieve this elusive goal of perfection, then we finally get to feel good about ourselves, right? When I get this email perfect, I'll feel confident, I'll feel good about myself. But again, that's not how it works. Another sign of a lack of confidence is if you have if you have difficulty accepting compliments. So if you downplay compliments, if you believe that you don't deserve them, that's a sign of a lack of confidence. Also, over apologizing. So constantly saying sorry, constantly apologizing for small things, that can be a sign of self doubt and a lack of confidence. Um, Fear of not being liked, fear of rejection. That can cause us to avoid social situations, or it can cause us to seek validation from others outside of ourselves. Setting and maintaining boundaries can be hard if you don't have a strong sense of inner confidence, meaning that you have trouble saying no to things and you can be overly accommodating. I don't know if you've ever noticed that in yourself where somebody asks something of you and without even thinking of it, you're like, yes, I will do that. And then later on you think about it and you're like, ah, crud, why did I say I would do that? I have been in that boat millions of times, my friends, where it's like you immediately shed your needs and your desires aside in favor of someone else. And it can be like a reflex. And so if you don't have a strong sense of self-confidence, then that can trip you up where your calendar is constantly filled with things that you didn't actually want to do and obligations to other people, um, instead of obligations to yourself. Procrastination, believe it or not, is a sign of low confidence. So, putting off tasks or responsibilities can be a way of avoiding future failure or criticism. Um, so, instead of doing the task and risking the failure or the criticism, we put it off and put it off and put it off. And then also a reluctance to seek help or seek support. So, confidence can make it really difficult for us to seek support for others because we feel ashamed or unworthy. We feel like we should have it all figured out, right? How many of you can relate to that where you're like, oh, I should just be able to figure this out on my own. I'm not going to ask for help. Or I'm not going to ask that question because I should know. I should know better. Excuse me, that's a sign of a lack of confidence. But the challenge is pretty much all of these are also a sign of being raised as a woman, raised as female, right? Because we're not supposed to toot our own horns. We are not supposed to like shine too bright. We're not supposed to be too successful. It's like be a leader, but bring everybody else along with you. Or stand out and be successful, but don't be the most successful person in the room. Be thin and pretty, but don't be the prettiest. Like, don't be threatening to men. We get all of these messages, which make it really hard for us to actually trust ourselves and feel good about ourselves. And that's the work that I do in the world. So, if you don't know me, hi, I'm Amanda. Thank you so much for being here. I'm honored that you're spending your time with me. Thank you. And I really appreciate it. So, throughout my life, I struggled with confidence. I felt really a lack of confidence, which was a detriment to me throughout my whole life. And this especially hit ahead about 5 years ago or so, where I had the leadership job. I had the family. I had a lovely child, lovely husband, beautiful home in a nice neighborhood. And I had earned a doctoral degree. And I basically, like I like to say, I checked all the boxes of success. And I was like, huh, like I still felt so anxious on most days that I felt like I was going to jump out of my skin. Was heavily medicated for depression and anxiety. I was constantly comparing myself to my coworker who had the same position as me, who I thought did a much better job at our job than I did. So I was trying to be him, basically. Um, when I was at work, I felt guilty because I left my daughter early in the morning with my husband. Usually, when she was screaming and crying, Mommy, don't go, I left super early so I could get to work before all of my employees did so that I could try to get a handle on things and get work done. And so I felt guilty about not being at home. And then I would leave work at 4:30 to go pick up my daughter from daycare, and I would feel guilty about being the first one to leave. And I basically just felt like I was failing at everything. And I thought it was my job. I thought that if only I had a different job that was more fulfilling, that was more like, I don't know, less stressful, um, then I would get to feel good. But throughout my journey, after hiring a coach and investing in coaching and really figuring my stuff out, I realized it was a lack of confidence because what wasn't exhausting me was the job, and what wasn't causing my anxiety, it wasn't the job, it wasn't feeling like I was failing everything. It was based on my thoughts and my emotions and the stories I was telling myself and what I was making those stories mean. So basically, it all distilled down to a lack of confidence. Because when you're beating yourself up all day, when you're feeling like you're going to screw it up all day and you're feeling anxious, and when you're reactive to what everybody else needs from you or wants from you, that's exhausting. And if you were there right now, I have so much compassion for you because I have been there too, and I totally get it. And what I want you to know is that this is not forever. This doesn't have to be the next 10, 20, 30 years of your life. In fact, it doesn't even need to be the next month of your life. So, confidence really is the foundation of everything that you want. It's not changing your job. It's not leaving your partner. It's not burning it all down and starting fresh, even though I know sometimes that sounds amazing. It's quieting that inner voice that's telling you that you're not good enough and you're not doing enough. It is actually being able to set boundaries around your time and your energy and what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And it's taking the time to get to know yourself a little bit more so that you actually know what you're willing to do and not willing to do and how you want to spend your time. And that all comes from confidence. So, my work in the world is to help as many women as possible, people who identify as women, were raised as women, to shed that social conditioning that's telling you that you're not good enough and you're not doing enough, to build confidence in yourself so then you can A, feel better and have more energy, B, stop beating yourself up all the time, C, go on to create whatever it is that you want to create with your life without always looking over your shoulder like, how am I going to screw this up? Because I know so many of you have a secret dream that you're not fulfilling because you aren't confident enough or you're afraid, which really is the other side of confidence, right? You're afraid that it'll go wrong, you'll screw it up, you'll end in financial ruin alone. That's everybody's fear, right? By the way, I just want to normalize that, is feeling like you are going to lose all of your money and your friends and partner and family are going to leave you and you're going to end up naked and alone somewhere. Um, so let's just put that fear to rest, okay? So, confidence is what helps you take the next steps towards what it is you actually want from life rather than what everybody else has told you to want. And so that's why I've distilled it down to self confidence. That's how I'm changing the world. Because the more of you that feel good about yourselves and the path that you're on and are doing the work that you are feel called to do in the world, and you have energy and you're feeling joy, that's going to change the world, right? So I am creating confidence, helping you create confidence. Um, I'm just noticing comments. Hi, Julie. So good to see you. Yes. Okay. And then I'll get back to that. So none of really the external circumstances are the problem with whatever it is that you're struggling with. So it's not your boss, it's not your partner, it's not your coworkers. And that's actually good news because you can't control any of them. It is the stories that you're telling yourself. It's what you're making things mean. So that's always my first step, is to separate out the facts from the stories. So the facts of any situation are basically data. So they're direct quotes. They're the thing that your boss said or the thing that your coworkers said. It's trying to come up with other data like numbers in your checking account. Um, it is anything that you could show a room full of people and they would all agree, yes, that's a fact. So facts don't hurt. That's what's important. Facts don't create an emotion in your body. Facts are just facts. We know that because I could show a fact to a room full of people and they would all have different interpretations of it. So, for example, if the fact is your boss sent you an email that said, we need to meet ASAP, I could show that to a room full of people and some of them would be like, oh crap, I'm getting fired. And others of them would be like, oh, I wonder what she wants to talk about, right? They would be curious. And still others would be like, I bet she heard about the amazing job I did on the XYZ project and she wants to congratulate me. So we don't feel an emotion until we tell ourselves a story about the fact. So, sorry, I get so distracted by things. So we don't feel an emotion until we tell ourselves a story about the thing. So I got ahead of myself, but I want to keep going on this thread. The first step to creating confidence is being really aware of these stories that you're telling yourself. So awareness is always the first step with anything. And um, more often than not, if you're not feeling confident, it's because you're not telling yourself empowering stories about yourself. So I want to give you a caveat about confidence. This is where a lot of people usually say, but I don't actually want to be too confident because I don't want people to think I'm arrogant. And this, what I want you to know is that often when you start to build confidence and you start to act with more confidence from a more confident place, it'll feel really foreign. It's like a different language. Because you've spent a lifetime acting and thinking and behaving in a certain way, so that's your comfort zone, even if it's not getting you where you want to go in your life. So when you start to act with more confidence, it probably will feel like arrogance. It probably will feel like you're stepping over the boundaries, overstepping the boundaries. That's what I was looking for. And so just be aware of that, right? Because we're so conditioned in our culture that we can't be arrogant. Like being arrogant is yucky. And arrogance is really a symptom of lack of confidence, right? It's more of that like fake it till you make it, like just put on a brave face, put on a mask, and be confident. And that's one of the things that absolutely does not work to build confidence. I hate it when people say fake it till you make it because that can feel good for a little while, but after like any amount of time, it can just feel like you're an imposter, and that can really fuel imposter syndrome. It's like anytime we put a mask on to try to be someone else or be different, it doesn't feel right for us, and that can actually backfire. Um, so, what doesn't work, in addition to faking it like you make it, is just telling yourself to be more confident, right? If that worked, it would be working for you right now. And it's not. Um, because again, that doesn't work. You've probably tried that. And if you tell yourself, I am awesome, I am amazing, I'm a wonderful human, that can help a little bit. But really, if you don't believe that in your heart, in your core, your brain's going to call BS on that and it'll backfire. So it can make you feel even worse trying to logic yourself out of it, right? Like, here are all the accomplishments that I've made, here are all the things I've done that I should feel good about. Logic doesn't work either because we need to work with how our brains work in order to build confidence in a way that sticks. So just not caring what other people think. That's easier said than done, right? Not feeling fear, faking it till you make it. So what does work? So the first step is to again be aware of the stories you're telling yourself. So are you telling yourself a story that is less empowering? Are you telling yourself a story where you screwed things up? Are you telling yourself a story of how things are going horribly wrong? Because none of our stories are true. That's what I want you to know. They feel like the truth because we've been telling ourselves the same stories or a variation of those stories for our whole lives. So we're socialized to believe that we're second best. That's part of living in a patriarchal culture. And that gets internalized. And so we always feel like we have to work harder or be better or achieve more to feel good about ourselves. So be really aware of the stories that you're telling yourself. I have a tool that I give clients called a thought download. And basically, anytime that you are feeling anxious or insecure, write the situation at the top. So write all the facts at the top and then just write for like 5 minutes on what's in your brain. And you'll be amazed at all of the junk that's in there because we're usually not even aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves until we start actively being curious about them. Um, okay, so always start with your thinking. Your thinking is the first step. And that is because thinking is what creates emotions in your body. And so if you are telling yourself a disempowering story, you're going to feel disempowered. And so the key is, in a way that works with your brain, to shift to a more empowering story so that you start to feel more confident and empowered. The second step is being aware of your emotions and being able to manage your emotions. Because so many of us don't take risks. We don't do things because we're afraid that we're going to feel disappointed in the future. We're afraid that we're going to feel shame in the future or guilt in the future or any other uncomfortable emotion. So we don't do the thing. So, so for example, if there's a job you're looking to apply for and you're really excited about the job, but you don't actually apply for it because you're afraid that you won't get it. And really, what that is a fear of feeling disappointed. But I'm guessing if you've been on this earth for a while, you've felt disappointment before. And you can handle disappointment. Sure, it sucks, but it also sucks to stay in your comfort zone all the time and not try new things. So you're worried how it might change your relationship. So you have a request that you would like to give to your boss, to present it to your boss, who's also one of your best friends. And you're worried that it might change your relationship. So that kind of sounds like you're projecting failure into the future, right? Like, and I'm saying this with so much compassion because we all do this and I've been here hundreds of times, which is why I can recognize it. So our brains love to catastrophize and they love to go to worst case scenarios. So you're worried that if you ask for this and she says no, it will impact your relationship. So counteract that and ask yourself, how could this actually be good for our relationship? How could this be the best thing for our relationship? Because we are afraid to vocalize our needs. We're afraid to speak up for ourselves because we're afraid it might harm our relationship. That's 100% social conditioning, and I totally get it. But what if you put yourself first? And your boss is an adult, right? And she gets to choose how she reacts to this request from you. So she gets to decide what she's going to make that mean in the story. She's going to tell herself about it, and you can't control that. And there's the potential that it might go really well, right? So our brains always skew towards the negative. They skew towards what could go horribly wrong because that's how we stay alive. So you have to ask yourself, how could this be the best possible thing, or how could this be good for our relationship? And really, at the end of the day, you've got to do what's best for you. And that can feel uncomfortable, right? That can feel super uncomfortable, especially if you have put other people first for a really long time. Brene Brown calls it standing your sacred ground, right? She says, don't shrink, don't puff up, stand your sacred ground. And if we're not used to standing our sacred ground, that can feel really yucky. And so just be prepared for it to feel yucky, but know in your heart that it's the right thing for you. Okay, thank you for your comments. I hope that is helpful. If anybody else has questions, comments, Kyle, if you have anything else, I am here for you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Okay, so 3 cornerstones of confidence. Start with your thoughts. What are the stories you're telling yourself? What are you making this mean? What's a more empowering story you could tell yourself? And emotions. Fear of feeling an uncomfortable emotion is actually drilled into your brain. Another reason we stay alive, our brain helps us to stay alive. Our brains are programmed to not want to feel uncomfortable emotions. And so that's why when you're sitting down to write the paper or do the work and that feels uncomfortable, your brain's like, let's actually just go downstairs and eat M&Ms because that sounds more fun and more pleasurable. So I got distracted at M&Ms. M&Ms are amazing. So fear of feeling an uncomfortable emotion can stop us from taking risks. And so being able to actually have an emotion be in your body and know that it's not going to kill you and being able to recognize when this comes up will help you feel so much more confident, right? Because when you are about to, let's say, like speak in front of other people and you're telling yourself a story of how you're going to fail and you're worried that you're going to feel uncomfortable in the future about it because you're going to beat yourself up, just being able to recognize that is such a confidence boost, right? And by the way, my friends, beating yourself up is an option. You don't have to choose that. My mom used to say to me all the time, she was like, you are always so hard on yourself. And I would kind of joke and be like, yeah, beating myself up is my superpower. Because I thought beating myself up was the only way I could get myself to achieve things. that actually backfires. Because when you're afraid of yourself, and when you're afraid of what you'll say to yourself and what you'll make things mean and how mean you'll be to yourself, then you're not going to take risks. But if you know that you'll always treat yourself with kindness and compassion no matter what, you'll be willing to take more risks. And let me tell you, this has been like one of the fundamental biggest things in my life that's helped me to move forward, to buy this farm, to create this business, to create a life that I actually honestly 100% love, um, is knowing that no matter what happens, I'll be nice to myself. Like if I completely fail to make any money in my business, I'm not going to tell myself a story that I failed, right? I'm not going to tell myself a story that I should have known better, I should have been better at this or that or whatever. The story is I'm committed to being kind to myself and compassionate to myself, and that takes so much of the pressure off, you guys. It's amazing. Which brings me to actions. So everything boils down to thoughts, emotions, and actions. That's how you get your results. So the first action is related to what I was just talking about, and that is failure proofing yourself. So we we hold ourselves back from doing so many things because we're afraid that we'll fail. And what I want you to know about failure is such an abstract concept, right? Like there's no time that you actually get like the rubber stamp F on your paper like you did in school. Um, there's no time that it's like, oh yeah, 0 on the math test. Sorry, you can't retake it. Like we're so conditioned to be afraid of failure, mainly through school, because that would mean something, I guess. And now we don't even question it. We're like, oh, I'm not going to apply for that job because I might not get it and then I'll fail. Or I'm not going to start my own business because I might fail. In fact, I've talked about this before, but I think it's such a good example of this is my husband really wants to grow plants and sell them. He wants to grow microgreens, he wants to grow little bitty bonsais, he wants to grow stuff. Like he has this dream of being a farmer. And so he's started growing microgreens and working on selling them to local restaurants. And he just has gotten stuck. And this happens to so many of us when we start working towards our dreams because it gets scary. And he said, well, I think I'm just afraid to fail. And that was it, like end of conversation. And I was like, no, you're talking to a life coach here. What do you mean? What would it look like to fail? And he said, well, I guess if I don't have any money or make any money from it. And I said, well, when? Like 10 years from now, 5 years from now, next month? When is your threshold for I haven't made any money, therefore I have failed? And he looked at me like his brain just exploded, like he hadn't even thought of that, which I get because we tell ourselves these stories of like, yeah, what if I fail? And then we take that as face value and we move on and don't do the thing. I remember when I was in college, I wanted to start my own business and I got super excited about it and then started thinking through the steps that I would have to take to make it happen. Then I was like, no, that sounds too hard. I might fail. And I didn't do it. Like, how many times do we do that, right? So you have to become failure proof to feel more confident. And that's not as scary as it sounds. So most people find failure uncomfortable at best. And at worst, it becomes the reason we don't go after what we really want. And women in particular were socialized that failure means there was a lack of ability, right? You probably have heard the terms fixed mindset and growth mindset, where let's imagine that you get an F on a math test, and a fixed mindset would say, okay, well, that's it, I suck at math, and then hold that belief forever. A growth mindset would be, oh, I wonder what I still need to learn. I wonder if they would come at it from more curiosity. Like, I wonder what I would need to do differently to be more successful. And unfortunately, women tend to be socialized more that what it's our fault. We just didn't do a good job. And we tend to be raised with more of a fixed mindset. So the simple truth is, though, even the most successful people, especially the most successful people, have to deal with failure and rejection on a regular basis. In fact, if you want to succeed in anything in life, you have to be able to tolerate, or even embrace failure. And not, again, back to our first key, our thoughts, not make it mean something about yourself. So, just checking the comments here. So, failure tolerance isn't something that we're born with. And in fact, we're usually conditioned out of it, right? Like, if a baby who's learning to walk had the idea of failure that we do as adults, nobody would ever learn to walk, right? Like, you watch babies and they fall down and they pick themselves up and they keep toddling along. And in fact, the irony of that is babies like don't have the physical conditioning to be able to walk right away. Like it never happens that a baby just stands up and walks because they need the action of pushing themselves up from falling to build the strength they need to walk. So think about that for a second. If a baby was like us and was like, oh, I started my own business, I didn't make any money. Oh, I started to walk and I fell down. I guess this isn't for me. Guess I'll do something else. I guess I'll just crawl around for the rest of my life. Um, got distracted. Then none of us would ever walk. So, failure tolerance is something that you can learn to develop. And the more resilient you are in the face of failure, the more successful you'll be and the more confident you'll be. Because again, you won't tell yourself a story of, oh, I failed, woe is me. So, you have to practice failing. So, for my business, I actually have a plan for 100 fails. So, every time I launch a new program, every time I open up, opportunities for one-on-one coaching with me, I come up with a list of fails. So that means like specific people I'm going to reach out to. That means businesses I'm going to reach out to. That means like promoting whatever it is that I'm doing, what I'm offering. All of the ways that people could reject me, I write that down on a list and I get to check them off, whether it's successful or not, because that's my fail plan. Because if you can work your way through 50 to 100 fails for anything, you will 100% be successful. It's that when you create something and you reach out to the first person and they say, no thanks, I'm not interested, and then you make it mean that what you have to offer isn't worth anything, that's going to keep you stuck for a long time. So if you, there are so many examples of famous people who failed the first however many times they were trying to do something or they were discouraged from doing it, but they just kept doing it. But it's so fascinating to me that we're like, well, I made this thing, tried to sell it to somebody, they didn't want it. I guess it's not worth anything. I guess I should quit. I'm trying to come up with other examples. When I taught art in high school, so many kids would come into my Art 1 class and they'd be like, I don't know why I'm even in this class. I'm not good at art. And I would be like, it's the first art class you've ever taken. Of course you're not good at art. Like, talk to me after you've taken 20 art classes, 100 art classes, and then let me know. But we have this idea of like, if I'm not automatically good at something, then it's a fail and I shouldn't keep doing it. So practice failing. Okay, the final action, and I talked about this a little bit, is have your own back. So brain just totally froze. Again, one of the reasons that we don't take risks, that we don't feel more confident in whatever the situation is because we're not afraid of what's going to happen. We're afraid of how we're going to talk to ourselves on the other end. So I'm going to say that again because it's super important, and then I'll give you some examples. So we're not actually afraid of what's going to happen. We're not afraid of the other person saying no. We're not afraid of stumbling over our words. We're not afraid of having all the answers or not having all the answers. We're afraid of how we're going to talk to ourselves on the other end. So this was a super game changer for a client that I was coaching, where she would get really nervous when she had to lead meetings for her work. So she would stay up all night the night before, probably not all night, but way later than she should, trying to research answers to all of the questions that she imagined people would ask her when she was leading this meeting, or all of the topics that other people would bring up, because she wanted other people to think she was prepared. And so inevitably, since you can't control what other people are going to ask and you can't control what other people are going to do, somebody would ask a question that she wouldn't have the answer to. And then she would feel awful and she would tell herself, I should have been more prepared, right? Like, I shouldn't have eaten dinner that night. I should have worked through dinner. all of the things, all the ways we beat ourselves up. Like I suck at my job. I'm sure you're familiar with this self-talk. So once we worked on her committing to being nice to herself after every meeting, no matter what, like when she noticed herself going down that rabbit trail of wanting to beat herself up and talk negatively to herself, she became so much more confident. And it wasn't that she had all of the answers suddenly, and it wasn't that she no longer felt like an imposter. It was more that she committed to, no matter what happened in the meeting, being kind to herself on the other end. That will move mountains, my friends. Being kind to yourself no matter what happens, no matter what other people do, no matter what happens in your external circumstances, no matter how much of a fail you think that you've done, it's okay. You're human. Being a human is messy. We make mistakes. In fact, we have to make mistakes. That's how we get stronger. That's how we stand up to walk. So commit to being nice to yourself no matter what. And that's where a lot of people think, well, if I'm just nice to myself all the time, I won't go to work at all. I'll just sit on the couch eating Netflix, eating Cheetos, watching Netflix. But that's not true. That's not going to happen. We tend to think that we have to have that inner drill sergeant to keep us going, to keep us motivated, to keep us doing our work. But really, the inner drill sergeant just keeps us afraid, so we don't do our best work. Okay, so to recap, we talked about confidence. We talked about what a lack of confidence looks like. We talked about the 3 keys to building more confidence, which are to start with your thinking. Be aware of the thoughts, the stories you're telling yourself. And you can ask yourself, is this story true? And even if it feels true, ask yourself, is this story helping me get where I need to go? Because more often than not, we've thought our thoughts and told ourselves our stories for decades, so of course they're going to feel true. I'm here to tell you they're not true. They're totally made up. They just feel true because we've thought them so many times. So ask yourself, is this story getting me where I need to go? Then be willing to feel any emotion. Be willing to feel disappointed. Go for the thing. Be willing to feel disappointed. Be willing to feel shame. Be willing to let any and all of these emotions be in your body and know that you're not going to die. That's a skill. It's a skill you can develop, get stronger so that you'll keep taking risks, moving forward, doing the things, feeling more confident. Yeah, that's all. That's what I'll say about that. And then finally, actions. So becoming comfortable with failure, embracing failure, being aware of the failure stories you're telling yourself, and actually having your own back so that no matter what happens, you know that you'll be kind to yourself on the other end and you're not going to beat yourself up. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. These are the 3 things that really work with your brain to help you build more confidence in yourself and your abilities, no matter what the situation is. And the more that you keep practicing these 3 things, the more confident you'll feel. So if you want to learn more about how to build confidence and specifically more tools to help manage your thinking, your emotions, and your actions to build more confidence in any situation, I would love to invite you to a new course that I have created. It's based on all of the tools that I teach clients to help them feel more confident. And it is a 4-module online class. You work at your own pace. However, I know that for myself, when I work at my own pace, I tend to not get things done. So there are specific accountability features in there to help you get things done. You'll learn to manage your thinking, your emotions, and your actions to feel more confident. So if you are ready to stop putting yourself last and putting everybody else's needs first, if you're ready to stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking about you, if you are ready to actually set boundaries around your time and energy so that you can do more of what you want to do and more of what you feel called to do, if you're ready to stop letting the idea of failure stop you or stop worrying about feeling emotions like disappointment, shame, guilt, anything uncomfortable, if you're ready to just lay on the couch with a book, no matter what is on your to-do list, and feel good about it, I would encourage you to check out this program. Like I said at the beginning of this video, really, confidence is the seed of everything that you want in your life. It's the seed of feeling less overwhelmed. It's the seed of being able to move through emotions. It's the seed of stopping beating yourself up. It's the seed of stopping worrying what everybody else is going to think when you put your own needs first. So, if you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed, unfulfilled, anxious, all of the things, check out this program. Um, you can, like I said, you can work through it in your own pace. It's 4 modules. The first module is thinking, so how to get a hold of your thinking and to think in a more confident way. The second is all about how to manage your emotions, um, how to let the uncomfortable emotions be there and not slow you down. The third module is about actions. So, how do I start taking action to feel more confident? And then finally, because it's such a deal breaker for so many of us and it holds us back in so many ways, the fourth module is managing other people. So, how do I stand up for what I want and what I need without worrying how it's going to impact everybody else? How do I let things be messy without worrying what other people are thinking about me? How do I handle the holidays, for example, without stressing out about what other people are going to say to me or what they're going to do or how obnoxious they're going to be? It all comes down to confidence. And so I created an entire module on managing other people, navigating other people, so that you can feel more confident. So I'm going to drop a link to it below. Materials will be available later this week. Check it out. You can sign up now and you'll be the first to get all of the materials right away. And if you have any questions, please let me know. But again, I am here to help you feel more confident. I am here to help you create the kind of life that you want to live because you actually get to do that. You deserve that. You get to have what you want. You get to feel how you want. And yeah, stop telling yourself you can't have it. All right, friends, love you dearly. Thank you for being here.